entertaining talking sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And yes, no more hotel room. I'm actually back at MetLife Stadium. So it's nice to be back where the New York Giants play. And I kind of wanted to dive into the story about Logan Ryan today that I saw on GiantsWire.com. Coming from a source from NJ Advanced Media, they reported it anonymously, but it only makes sense, and I'll dive into some of it. I'll talk about the upcoming free agency period for the New York Giants and some of the decisions that the New York Giants may have to make. In addition to that, I should have my game preview video up later today talking about the big game in 2 days between the New York Giants and Seattle Seahawks. In addition to that, I'll be live on Bad Dog Sports tonight, so hopefully some of you guys come by for that as we talk about this week's upcoming game between the Giants and the Seahawks. But let's dive right into the story. And basically what came out from the anonymous source from NJ Advanced Media is that Logan Ryan, who has been a godsend for the New York Giants, has come out and said that he'd be open to returning to the New York Giants, but not before he tests free agency, or at least, people maybe from within his camp. Maybe he didn't directly say it, but that is what is being, transcribed. And you know what? This should be no surprise to anybody. Logan Ryan is 30 years old. He's having a fantastic year. And this year, he kind of had to settle with the New York Giants. Why? Maybe because of the virus. Maybe because he was getting up there in age. And maybe his market will not be there. Just because he wants to test free agency. Well, he wanted to test free agency last year. Doesn't mean that he may not have to settle for a one-year deal with the New York Giants. And one thing I will say, for him, it may not make a lot of sense. But for a lot of players, you're probably going to see a lot of players, if the cap decreases, which many project, signing one-year deals. The major reason being there won't be as much money to divvy up amongst the players, meaning that you won't make as much money. This year the cap was 198. If it dips to 180, you're talking about a 10% decrease in the salary cap structure for each individual team, meaning 10% less to pay out to each individual player. So if I was a player, I'm probably not looking to sign a long-term contract extension next year if I'm projecting the cap to go up the following year. So maybe the Giants, in the end, will be able to sign some of these players to one-year contracts, and we're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out. The Giants, of course, have a lot of decisions to make on this roster, not just for guys that they want to bring in, but potential cuts as well. And you start there. Right now, depending on where you look, the New York Giants have between $18 and $22 million in projected cap space going into next year's offseason. Now, that's all projections. We don't know what the salary cap's going to be, and this is a very tricky offseason due to the virus. Traditionally, the cap will go up by about 6 to 7% each year, which means it was projected to be about 210, 212, 215 next year. A lot of people are saying it may be as low as 175, 180 because of this virus, because of lost revenue, obviously due to the fact that people have not been going to the games, and the teams have lost a lot of money because of that. And if that's the case, well, the Giants will have a lot of decisions to make on this roster. If they only have about $20 to $22 million to spend, you start with the cuts. You start with Golden Tate. That'll save you $6 million. There's a bunch of small moves that'll probably save them $5, $6 million. Guys like Spencer Pulley, a number of others that they could cut, which could free up maybe $5 to $7 million extra. They also more than likely will cut Nate Solder after June 1st, which would save them another $10 if Nate Solder does not retire. And then the big question mark becomes Kevin Zeitler. Kevin Zeitler has been our safest, most consistent offensive lineman. He's a pro. He's not unbelievable, but he's a guy that you could stick out there and he's going to do a pretty good job at that guard spot. The Giants, of course, traded Olivier Vernon to obtain him, and the Giants could potentially look to trade him this offseason if they feel that Shane Lemieux is ready to take over that guard spot. I think Hernandez definitely will be one of the guards next year, probably on the left side. And then the question becomes, can Lemieux be that right guard? And with the money they would save potentially from trading Zeitler or cutting Zeitler, maybe you'd have enough money to bring in a guy that would be someone like a Cam Fleming at the tackle spot, but at the guard position, or a Mike Remmers, a guy that you could stick in at, if you don't feel Lemieux is quite ready, or at least could provide some depth. And of course, they could draft guards in the draft as well. But that will be a major question mark going into the offseason. Do you stick with Zeitler or do you not? Because if you do not trade Zeitler, you're not going to have enough cap space probably to bring back all these players on defense. And if you do, that's about all you're going to have. You look at some of the players on this defense right now. Leonard Williams is making $16.5 million on the franchise tag. And Leonard Williams gambled, and it paid off. Leonard Williams this year is having a career season. He's got 6 sacks. He's great against the run. He's grading out very well in PFF. And he's going to be looking to be paid handsomely. I mean, he's played very well for the New York Giants. He's been one of the driving forces behind how strong this defense is. And I would think he'd be looking for at least what he's making on the franchise tag on a 3 or 4 year commitment, and we'll have to wait and see if the New York Giants are willing to do that. But even if you were able to get the salary cap up to $50 million, that's going to tie up about, that's only going to leave you with 33 or so after you bring back Leonard Williams. And the other thing you have to think about when bringing these players back, it's not just for this year, it's about the future. You look at a lot of the young players on this roster, guys like Dexter Lawrence, guys like Daniel Jones, guys like Saquon Barkley, and a number of others, Darius Slayton. You're going to have to tie up money to bring these guys in, not to mention if you want to make a splash move. So the Giants are going to have to decide how long they're going to try to make these contracts. And in my opinion, you don't want to make them too long because you want cap flexibility. Of course, you can always try to cut them in the last year of their deals if you're trying to bring other players back on this team, but you have to think long term. Otherwise, you're going to end up like the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm sure the New York Giants do not want to do that. As far as Logan Ryan goes, he's been phenomenal for the New York Giants, and he's been a tremendous leader both on and off the field. But the question you have to ask yourself, and I didn't even bring up Wayne Gallman, who I know a lot of you guys are probably going to want to bring back, and that might be tough to do as well, depending on the interest that he garners out on the free agency market. He's proven to be worthy probably of a starting running back in the right situation, and the Giants, of course, still have Barkley on this roster. So we'll have to wait and see what the Giants elect to do there. If they let Gallman go, I would suspect that the Giants would probably use a 4th or 5th round pick to try to bring in another running back to back up Saquon Barkley, being that there will be a committee approach. But as far as Ryan goes, well, here's the thing. If I'm Logan Ryan, I'm doing the same exact thing. This year he had to settle. He wanted to play for Joe Judge. He wanted to play in Jersey. But you remember, that dragged out. If he would have gotten a deal he would have liked, he would have signed there. And that's the right thing to do. I mean, at the end of the day, this guy's getting up there in age, and he's getting his last opportunity to try to get a big contract. He signed the 1-year deal specifically for this situation. And the New York Giants right now, they have a lot of young talent at that position as well as he's played. I mean, at the end of the day, the only reason probably he ended up a Giant to begin with was because McKinney went down. McKinney went down. Of course, Baker going down didn't help either. Also, you've got young players that are emerging, though. Guys like Darnay Holmes. You're getting McKinney back. You've still got Jabril Peppers. You've got Julian Love. And I don't know if he's going to be in the budget for the New York Giants. A lot of that is going to depend on what other teams are willing to give him. Now, he was coming off a good year last year with Tennessee. He had 4 interceptions, I think. He had, a bunch of forced fumbles, 4 sacks. He was very active and had a very strong season there. And for some reason, he didn't gain a lot of interest on the open market. And maybe some of that had to do with the virus. Maybe because people felt like they couldn't, run him through physicals. Who knows? But the Giants were able to get him on a very good deal, and he fired his agent because he wanted to play football. He wanted to get a deal done. Well, now he has proven that he could still play at a strong level. I mean, he's been great for the Giants. Maybe the stats may not fully indicate it. He's out there on every down. He's been a leader for this football team. And I think he's been an instrumental part for why this team has become so much better on defense. And he's got ties to both Graham and Judge. So you would think that the New York Giants would want to keep him back if it made sense. Now, do I think a 3 or 4 year deal for Logan Ryan makes sense at the age of 30? No. The question is, will there be a team desperate out there enough to give him a 3 or 4 year deal? And that's where it all starts, and that's where it all ends, because the Giants, in my opinion, cannot do that. And if he gets 3 or 4 years, you can't blame Logan Ryan for leaving. If the Giants could sign him to a 1 year deal, even a 2 year deal with the ability to get out after 1, I'm all for it, depending on the price. I'm not going to give him a ton of, like $10, $12 million. I just can't do it. You have to be within the budget, and a lot of you guys want to bring back Dalvin Tomlinson. A lot of you guys want to sign Wayne Gallman, and you hear people talking about wanting to potentially sign wide receivers. Well, if you want to do all this, and you want to be able to keep Daniel Jones, and you want to be able to keep some of these younger players on this roster, that's the business. There's a salary cap for a reason. You can't keep everybody, and that's going to be a major decision for the New York Giants, in my opinion. Logan Ryan, as much as I love him, I can't sign him to more than a 1 or 2 year contract, especially if I'm bringing back Dalvin Tomlinson, who a lot of you guys want to bring back as well, who has said he'd be willing to get, come back probably for a little bit less from somewhere else. Maybe you could bring him back on the $9 to $10 million range. We're going to have to wait and see how free agency plays out. Right now, we've still got 5 big games to go, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Logan Ryan and some of the comments that came out and some of the decisions that the New York Giants will have to make this offseason. It will not be easy for Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.